let's finish on January 6th. I want to give you guys my like general take on it and then have you react to it. So, initially, my thoughts on the whole January 6th committee were, look, this is kind of silly. We know who did what because it's on tape. So, like, arrest the people who committed crimes and let's sort of, be done with this and move on. But I also did say, in the wake of that, I would have understood. There's some provision in the Constitution, which I talked a lot about at the time, about how Congress could have passed basically a law, I think it was, that says Trump can't run for office again because of what happened here on January 6th and how we like sort of egg people on. I didn't want to do impeachment because it seems goofy because he's going to be out of office anyway in like 7.5 minutes. So why would you impeach? It just seems like the weird way to do it. I didn't think the bar was high enough to actually have criminal liability. So that's why I thought, hey, this constitutional avenue makes perfect sense for you to say, hey, you can't run again. But I was against the investigation because we already have it on video. Just arrest the people who committed crimes and let's just move on from this and focus on what we should be focusing on, which is, wages, whatever, fill in the blank with standard political stuff that people should care about. But then now as time has gone by and I'm watching it unfold, I've come to a little bit of a different conclusion, which is, although I still don't know if there's going to be criminal liability, from a political perspective, I understand why the Democrats did it because I think it's working. I think it's political theater, but I think it's working in terms of the desired goal, which is like, let's make this guy appear accurately so unhinged and so insane and throw so much mud against the wall that some of it is going to stick for Trump to run again in 2024. He might not even win because they've even, I think, effectively made it so the Republican establishment has abandoned Trump. McConnell doesn't like him. All the big players don't like him. Some of the donors are fleeing him. I covered a story on that the other day. DeSantis is the one who's next in line, who's sort of, they're pushing him to the forefront. So what do you think of my analysis there? Were you guys in favor of it from the beginning? And what do you think about the implications of what happened?
Well, I think I had similar thoughts on the onset of it as you did. I thought, well, we're not going to learn anything useful. This is just going to be a political theater show. It's going to be pointless, blah 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 blah. That's kind of how I felt about it. I didn't really have any high hopes for it going into it. And my position about, well, let me back up for a second. So anyway, so then we started watching then it actually happened and I started watching all these hearings and it completely changed my view on it entirely. I'm actually really happy that they have it because yes, it is obviously incredibly one-sided. And I would like to hear the other side, and they're probably not going to. I would like for them to release the full depositions to everyone that they had testified, so that you could kind of parse through them to see exactly what, make sure everything's in the correct context. But what I like about the hearing, and what I think is important, is that when the last election was occurring and Donald Trump was claiming that there was all this election fraud, I think a lot of people who were on the right, or even people that weren't on the right that were kind of just somewhere in the middle, they assumed that when Donald Trump was claiming all these, that there's all this election fraud across the country, that he, being the president of the United States of America, had access to some kind of information that the public didn't have access to, that he was drawing these claims from, somewhere. That Donald Trump wasn't just reading Twitter and Facebook posts and drawing claims about, election fraud. And the thing that's useful about the January 6th hearing is that we find out that's not the case. He literally was just drawing, election fraud claims from Twitter and Facebook. And that, Bill Barr, and who he put in the office as the Attorney General, and all his lawyers and all the people that he had basically investigating election fraud cases, who are all pro-Trump people, who would be in their best interest for there to be election fraud. All these people that surrounded him were saying, we can't find any election fraud, Mr. President. Your claims you're making just are not true. They're just completely not true. And the only people that were supporting Trump's claims about election fraud were, the crazy people like Giuliani and Powell and Flynn. And they were going, and these were the people that believed that satellites were changing votes and all the Dominion stuff. And now they're getting disbarred for or sued for and all that stuff. And like you even had in one of the January 6 hearings, it's like the head Republican representative in Arizona is asking Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani goes to him and he's like, hey, you should call in, the House back in the session so that you could throw out all the votes in Arizona and just declare Donald Trump won the state of Arizona. And he's like, listen, Rudy, I voted for Donald Trump. That'd be great, but you need to give me evidence of election fraud before I do that. And he never does. And they could never provide any evidence for anything.
By the way, that
And
guy
so
lost
from
his
that,
race, Sitch. That guy's name is Rusty Bowers, the guy you just described, the
yeah.
Arizona, and he just lost his
Oh,
race
that's
because of that.
unfortunate.
That's
Yeah.
right. Mm-hmm.
Right. But see, that's what's it's so unfortunate. Everything's so tribal now that it doesn't matter. As long as if you don't toe the line that the election was stolen, I guess it's going to hurt you. And that's what so many Republicans
Wow.
are basically, being afraid of and being cowarded by. But when it comes to the January 6th, and I think the Democrats, however, have kind of made a mistake with January 6th stuff, which is that I understand, like, psychologically, the visuals of having all of these people rush, the Capitol and break in and all that stuff. Like, that's all very visually, psychologically exciting. That's really the least important aspect of everything that happened in that time period, because there was really no realistic chance that those people going into the Capitol would have actually caused, the vote to change or anything. Like nothing they were doing would have actually had any impact on the country. It was just kind of embarrassing and, crazy, but it wouldn't have actually done anything. But Trump trying to get Pence to throw out the votes, Trump trying to get the state state houses to throw out the votes and basically just vote him president, and the scheme he concocted with Clark to try to basically lie and say that the Department of Justice had found evidence of fraud when they hadn't. To me, all these things behind the scenes, which are all just these non-sexy stories of people sitting around in rooms talking, that's like the real crime that happened with the election fraud stuff, and the real crime that January 6 hearings have sort of brought to the forefront. And that should be the focus. And unfortunately, that's not the focus. Unfortunately, the focus is, Donald Trump attacked someone maybe in a limo, or Donald Trump threw a plate of, a sandwich at a wall and it left ketchup. Like, people in the news they just focus on these visually salacious details that really aren't that important to the whole story.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think, and all those people who did actually break laws on January 6th at the Capitol, they've been, tried and found guilty, a lot of them. So it's like, okay, we put that part aside. Now let's talk about the stuff that actually matters, which is the genuine attempt to, like, nullify an election and overthrow it. Adam, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, on the show, we have a few lenses of the world that we kind of use. Like, we've talked about the MMT lens. We use another lens that we haven't really talked about, moral foundations theory, which comes from Jonathan Haidt. That's a really interesting way to analyze things on the personal level. Selectorate theory, we use a lot in situations like this, where we're evaluating power structures. And this was really the reason why I wanted to cover the January 6th stuff, because it's straight selectorate theory. Like, in order for Trump to stay in power, he has to build a power base, and all of the stuff of him replacing the head of the DOJ with, like, some environmentalist attorney or whatever, just so he can send the letter out that says the election was a fraud, is straight like straight dictator authoritarian move. So that's unfortunately the thing that is most interesting to us and is least interesting to everybody else, because, like Sitch said, they just want to focus on the salacious stuff. So as soon as we started covering this, we did note that, there's some substantive stuff here. The normal response to January 6th is, it's just a show trial. There's nothing to see here. And they want to point, obviously, to the weakest claims being made. And I mean, I get it. It's a partisan situation. I honestly wish we didn't live in a world where they were making these weak claims, but, that's the world we live in. But there are plenty of strong claims with lots of evidence being made. And that's really what we're focused on. So a lot of people have not liked us covering January 6th, and basically accused us of focusing on claims that we're not really even interested in. But, like, that's the internet, right? That's going to happen.
All right, guys, this is a teaser clip from my podcast with Sitch and Adam of the Sitch and Adam Show. They generally describe themselves as enlightened centrists, so it was interesting. There were many points of agreement, but also points of disagreement and debate. We talked about Jordan Peterson, the Alex Jones defamation trial, January 6th, MMT, which is modern monetary theory, which is, like sort of a deep economic conversation. And it was great. So please consider supporting the show. $5 a month gets you the video of every podcast, and it gets it to you a day early. Everybody else, you could sign up on Substack for free also, and that gets you the audio podcast. As soon as it drops, it gets emailed to you, and you can listen for free that way. But we don't take any ad money for the show, so please consider donating. It's you guys that keep us going with the $5 a month. So we love you guys very much. We'll talk to you soon. Peace. If you want to see me and Krystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Krystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.